Okay, hello and welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Georgie. I'm the programs manager here at CUE. Joining me here on the call from CUE is Wendy Cohen, our programs associate, and Jillian Carver, programs and communications associate. Before we get started, we want to go over some quick procedural notes. The first thing is that we are talking to you live. We're also recording this info session. And we will post a link to the recording as well as the transcript of it on our website after tonight. If you aren't able to stay for the whole info session, or if you'd like to refer back to any of this information, all of that will be made available to you. Again, this panel is being recorded, so please turn off your video and rename yourself using an alias if you'd like to protect your privacy. Please keep your microphone muted during the presentation portion of the evening to ensure the best audio experience for everyone. Live captions are available tonight. If you click on the CC/closed caption button at the bottom of your screen and select show subtitles, you'll be able to view them. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this webinar. If you have questions, please type them in a private chat to Jillian Carver. We will do our best to answer any questions that we receive either in the chat or out loud during the Q&A session at the end. Please note that we prefer to answer more general questions that will apply to a larger audience during this session. If you have questions about your personal eligibility or if it's otherwise very specific to your proposal, we ask that you instead email us at opencall@qartfoundation.org. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. We'll drop that email in the chat now. Okay, so on our agenda today, first we're going to talk about some tips and guidelines for the open call, and then we'll walk through some examples of successful past proposals. After this, we'll look at some sample budgets for the solo exhibition open call and for the Curatorial Projects open call. And then we'll open up to questions you might have that we haven't addressed so far, or maybe weren't as clear as they needed to be. So first, some quick facts. Our exhibitions last 5 to 6 weeks and take place at CUE's gallery space in the Chelsea neighborhood of Manhattan. They'll take place between January and December of 2023. The exact dates of each exhibition will be set with you and the curator working with CUE when winning proposals are selected. All application materials need to be submitted online through Submittable by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday, March 25th, 2022. Please visit our website for the link to the submittable application, and we'll also drop this link in the chat right now. There is a $10 submission fee for the application, the proceeds of which feed directly into CUE's exhibitions and programs budget. If you cannot afford the fee, please reach out to us directly via email. We can arrange to waive it. Unfortunately, we're not able to accept applications by email or snail mail. Applications will be notified of results by the end of July 2022. You'll be notified via email using the email address that you set up with your Submittable account. So please make sure that this email is something that you have consistent access to. For winning proposals, CUE contributes an artist/curatorial honoraria, shipping and installation budgets, and design and printing costs for a full color exhibition catalog. We'll break down exactly what's included in each of those contributions a little bit later when we talk about budgets. Next, let's talk about eligibility and who can apply. So for curatorial projects, any emerging curator or collaborative team currently living in the United States are eligible to apply. Please note that while you and any artists you include in your proposal may be of any nationality, you must all be living and working in the United States. The proposal must include 4 or more artists, half of whom must meet CUE's criteria for under-recognized artists. For solo exhibitions, it's a little bit more complicated. Artists or collaborative teams currently living in the United States must meet all of the following criteria to be eligible to apply. You cannot have had a solo show in a commercial New York City gallery within the last 5 years. You cannot have current consistent commercial gallery representation in the United States. You cannot be currently enrolled in a degree program. So if you are set to graduate in May or June 2022, that should be okay. Finally, you must have maintained a studio practice outside of an academic setting for 3 or more years. If you're applying as a collaborative team for a solo exhibition, this also shouldn't be the first time that you're working together. You must demonstrate a minimum 2-year history of working as a collaborative team or artist collective, and the application should be completed under one name. Now I'll go over some frequently asked questions that come up usually before anyone starts the application process. So the first, I'm an artist. Can I apply for both a solo exhibition and a curatorial proposal? You absolutely can. The only caveat is that we don't allow curators to include their own artwork in a curatorial project. Second, I have a lot of great ideas. Can I submit multiple proposals in one category? Unfortunately, no. While you can submit one curatorial proposal and one solo exhibition proposal, you cannot submit more than one proposal in either category. Another question we often get is from artists who've had a solo exhibition in a smaller gallery, perhaps in an outer borough, say Brooklyn or the Bronx, and whether they're still eligible to apply. The answer to this varies. If your solo show is in a small, non-commercial gallery, artist-run space, or not-for-profit space, then you are still eligible. But please contact us directly if you are not sure. We also get a lot of questions about the physical limitations of our gallery space and installation questions. Things like painting the gallery and hanging work from the ceiling. Both of these things are possible, and we welcome you to imagine the best and most ambitious version of your exhibitions for the Q space. But there are a few caveats. Please visit our open call FAQ page for detailed answers to the variety of space and installation related questions. We'll drop the links to this in the chat now. If you still aren't sure about if your exhibition is realistic for Q's gallery space, you can just email us, particularly if it's something that has pretty complicated installation or involves altering the space in any really major way. Next, we're going to briefly discuss the selection process. So during a preliminary review, entries are immediately disqualified if applicants do not meet our eligibility guidelines. If an applicant submits multiple proposals in the same category, or if applications are incomplete. Double check before you submit to make sure that you have included everything that we require. And ask if you are not sure about your eligibility. The juries only review applications that are complete and by artists who are eligible. After applications are screened for eligibility, we have an initial jury review the applications online to select a short list of applicants to proceed to the next stage. The initial jury remains anonymous, but it includes representatives from Q's network of alumni and advisors. The finalists are decided by a separate jury composed of established artists and curators that convene online in June 2022. Each panelist then selects a finalist to work with as a curator mentor throughout the planning and execution of the exhibition. They will be asked to provide a curatorial support and mentorship to the selected artists, including at least one studio visit or site visit in preparation for the exhibition, and also conversations about the exhibition and installation, as well as to be present during the installation and opening. They will also write a curatorial statement to be published in the catalog, and hopefully will be able to participate in some sort of public program along with the artists during the exhibition. Our panel of artists and curators change each year, and their names remain anonymous until the results of the open call are announced. The panel selects the winning entries based on criteria that include the quality of the application, the feasibility of the proposal, how well the concept is developed, the originality of the proposal, and the need of the artist or curator at this particular moment in their career. Strong images and a cohesive written statement always help, both of which we will discuss in detail later. While we have no specific type of work that we prioritize in terms of subject matter, content, or medium, we do prioritize artists whose work is not as easily represented in commercial galleries. So I'm going to turn things over now to Wendy to go over submission requirements.
Thank you, Georgie. So for solo exhibitions, you could just go back to the last slide. Oop, okay. For solo exhibitions, we require a resume or CV, a narrative bio, an artist statement, a short synopsis of your exhibition, a detailed exhibition proposal, work samples, and a short explanation of why you think you should have an exhibition at Q and what this opportunity would mean to you at this point in your career. For curatorial projects, we require the curator's CV, a list of at least 4 participating artists and short narrative bios for each of these artists, work samples from your proposed artists, a short synopsis of the exhibition, a detailed exhibit proposal, a short explanation of why you think you should have an exhibition at Q and what this opportunity would mean to you at this point in your career, and a completed budget worksheet. To clarify, an artist resume or artist CV should outline your artistic achievements rather than the kind of resume you present for a job interview. This should be around 4 or 5 pages maximum. Your narrative bio can be up to 200 words and should summarize your resume or CV in full sentences. It should include things like exhibitions, publications, grants, residencies, and other artistic achievements, and should be written in the third person. Here's an example of a narrative bio from one of our past open call selections. Nancy Floyd exhibited at Q in fall of 2017. Nancy talks about herself in the third person and outlines her past exhibits, some awards, and grants that she has received, as well as a book of hers that was published. And she also explains her education and where she currently lives. I'm not going to read this whole thing out loud right now, but it will be available as an example in the transcript of this session, which will be on our website later. So moving on to the artist statement, your artist statement can be up to 400 words and should describe your artistic practice. It should answer questions like what materials, media, content, and subject matter you work with. You should have some idea after we've read it of what your work is about, what it does, and how. You should write this in the first person, so using I or my. I'm going to drop links in the chat to 2 articles about crafting an artist statement, one by Kara Ober and one by Lonnie Abrams. These might be good resources if you need help writing your artist statement. You can also look at websites of your favorite artists and look at their artist statements to see what you like and what you don't like if you're working to improve your own artist statement. Q will also be hosting a specialized workshop on crafting an artist statement with Shama Raman next week on Wednesday, March 9th at 6:30 p.m. While this workshop is currently sold out, the first hour is going to be recorded and posted to our website as a free resource. Here's an example of Nancy Floyd's artist statement. Nancy works with photography and she wrote a really concise artist statement explaining her work. Again, I'm not going to read this out loud, but you can refer to it later on our website in the transcript of this session. Here's another example by Christina Day, another winner of our open call who showed at Q in the late fall of 2016. Christina's work was a little bit more conceptual, but she does a really good job of talking about her work in a way that's very clear and accessible. And again, this will be available online later. So next, the short exhibition synopsis should use up to 60 words. That's pretty short, just 2 or 3 sentences explaining very concisely what is included in your exhibit. So here's the example by Nancy Floyd. She writes, I am proposing an exhibition of approximately 15 images for my self-portrait series, Weathering Time, along with video projections of all 2,500 plus images. Each of the 15 images will contain between 2 and 90 self-portraits and range in size from 10 by 13 inches to 42 by 96 inches. So as you can see, this is very specific. You don't necessarily need to give us the exact dimensions like she does, but what's really great is how concise it is and how it gives me a clear idea of what work is being included in the exhibit. The detailed exhibit proposal is a place to really delve deep and talk about your exhibit using up to 600 words. It should include a very thorough outline of the exhibit, and the background of the work and ideas. So how you developed your concept, what your inspiration was, and what your plan is for the exhibit. Here's an example by Christina Day. Again, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will pull out a few notable points. Christina's proposal is an example of work that was a site-specific installation. It's something that she didn't have already made, and she didn't have images available to submit as work samples. This is a question that we receive often. Can I submit new work in my proposal? Or can I submit a proposal for a site-specific work or work that I haven't made yet? And the answer is absolutely yes. But then you have the challenge of describing and communicating very clearly what that work will be and convincing us that you can execute it and submitting images of past works that help to illustrate your idea. Christina does a really good job of that. I've highlighted a few things here that I wanted to point out specifically. In the first paragraph, Christina talks about her inspiration for her work in a very narrative way. Right in the first paragraph, she situated her proposed work in the rear exhibit space of Q, which shows us she's thinking very specifically about our space, so we know that she's put a lot of thought into having her work shown at Q. At the beginning of the next paragraph, she writes, in approaching the work in the center of the gallery, a visitor walks up to a large white-walled cube, roughly 14 feet wide by 22 feet long by 8 feet high, to approach a narrow gap in the walls through which they can see a tight cropped view of deeper inner space. Here she's put herself into the shoes of a gallery visitor and is thinking very concretely about the experience of a viewer in Q space. She's also giving us some dimensions, which allows us to clearly envision what it is that she's proposing. Another thing she does is discuss her proposal in relation to previous works that she has made and supplied images of. We'll look at her work samples a little bit later and point out that work. But this is a great thing to do, whether you're proposing existing work or new work, to let us know in the exhibit proposal how some of these work samples relate to the exhibit that you're proposing. Let us know, is this a work that's going to be included in the show, or a work that's similar to what's included in the show, or perhaps a work that's different from what's included in the show, but shows elements that helped inform that work. And then finally, at the end, she writes, in facilitating the construction of this project, interior buildings are to be built off-site in my studio in Philadelphia and then transported to New York City, where they will be built and finished into place with outer drywalling completed on-site. Again, that just makes it so clear that she's thought about this exhibit from its conception to transporting it here to how it's going to fit in the space and the feasibility of realizing this exhibit within the constraints of the budget. At this point, I'd like to go over some general tips for writing that are applicable to any aspect of the written application. The first thing is to write for a general audience. Try to avoid using art jargon or any language that makes it hard to understand what it is that you're proposing. This actually detracts from your application. It is better to write plainly and explain for a general audience what it is that you're proposing. If you have a friend or a family member who would be willing to read your application and let you know if it makes sense to them, that's a great way to check that you're being clear. The second is to be direct. Avoid using the passive voice or the future conditional tenses. We know that this is hypothetical, but you don't need to say, if selected, my exhibition would include. You can just say, my exhibition includes, and that's great. The third thing is to be specific. So write about the specific works included in your exhibit and write specifically about how the exhibit will work at Q. We know that it's a lot of work to put together a proposal and that you may be tempted to recycle it for several organizations or other application opportunities. And while that may be a good place to start, the best chance at getting a show at Q or really anywhere is to show that you've put in the time and care to tailor your exhibit to that organization or space. I'm going to drop a link in the chat to further resources for crafting a strong proposal, which are also found on our website. And then I'm now going to turn things back to Georgie to discuss work samples.
Great. So now we'll take a look at some work samples. For solo exhibitions, you can include up to 10 images and 4 video or audio samples, if that's applicable to your work. For curatorial projects, you should include at least 1 image for each artist, up to 15 images total, and a video or audio sample where applicable. The first thing to keep in mind is these images should really illustrate your proposal. You can include samples of your completed work, works in progress, a plan or a sketch of what you have in mind, or anything that's going to be most effective in illustrating to us your proposed exhibition. Please do not submit a multiple page PDF or a file as one work sample, as this is not allowed. The second thing is to use high quality images. Make sure that your images reflect the quality of your work and make sure they are clear, bright photographs, neutral, non-distracting backgrounds. Also make sure that they convey what you feel is most important about your work. For example, if what's most important about your work is the fine details, make sure you include some detail shots. So these are Christina Day's work samples. To clarify, the images on the screen were submitted as separate images, but just for the ease of viewing them now, I've thrown multiple images on each slide. So this is the piece that she referred to in her detailed exhibition proposal that Wendy just showed. And this is the work that is most similar to what she was proposing. So you'll kind of see as I scroll through that she devoted 5 out of her 10 images to this work. This is a really smart thing to do in thinking about what's going to be most effective in conveying your proposed work, making sure that your images really center around that. All of these will also be available in the recording as well. So now let's move on to the budget worksheets. So this year we will only be requiring curatorial project proposals to include a budget worksheet. Solo exhibitions will not be required to submit this information, but curators, please follow the budget worksheet instructions, which are included on our website and walk you through exactly how to fill out the budget in detail. We'll drop a link to these instructions in the chat. We ask that you submit your best, most realistic estimate for your expenses at this point in time. We understand and expect that things are going to change between now and the exhibition, so that's okay. Don't stress out too much about this. Just do your best in terms of estimating your expenses. And if you come across a category that maybe doesn't apply to you, in our budget worksheet, just put a 0 or a NA for not applicable, just to make sure you don't miss any of the key areas. When you're done filling out your worksheet, your total income should match your total expenses. So this, should be a balanced budget. Because we get a lot of questions about what Q contributes to solo exhibitions, we're going to take a quick look at some solo exhibition budget guidelines. Even though, again, this year we are not requiring solo exhibition applicants to submit a budget worksheet, this portion of the webinar is going to be just so you can consider, what would be most feasible for you and for the proposal. So let's look through what Q covers in terms of a solo exhibition budget. The way that this budget breaks down is that we allot an artist honorarium to the solo artist in the amount of $5,000, as well as an honorarium for your curator mentor, an artist shipping budget, art installation budget, the full cost of a 32-page color catalog, a budget to cover hospitality, and the cost of high quality images and video for the final exhibition for press and archival purposes. The art shipping budget, the art installation fees, hospitality, and catalog printing are all fixed amounts that Q contributes. These numbers are based on our experience with the average cost of an exhibition, and these categories cannot be reduced or transferred to another line item. They can be added to, though, using funds from additional income you may procure for your exhibition if you feel that what we're contributing is not going to be sufficient funding. We encourage applicants to plan for their best, most realistic budget. In the instance that the artist's expenses go beyond the scope of what Q is able to offer in terms of financial assistance, we'll expect the artist to make up this difference. So let's look more in depth at these exhibition expenses. The first thing is art shipping. So again, Q is going to contribute $1,500 for shipping. An example where $1,500 might not be an adequate amount for shipping would be if you had, say, a large scale sculpture that needed to be crated, if your work is very large or is traveling from really far away. If you're not sure what shipping might cost, our recommendation is to contact some shipping services and request a quote. That's really a great thing to do for any of your expenses, actually, that you're not sure about, including equipment rental, supplies, and travel. You can do some research on into who can provide the services you need and get a quote. That should be good for kind of scoping out your budget. Please note that international shipping is not permitted. The next line item would be art handling. So Q budget's roughly $960 towards art installation fees, which covers the labor of professional art handlers for 2 days of install and 1 to 2 days of deinstall. Next is hospitality. Q contributes roughly $200, which is the average cost of providing beer or wine for exhibition openings or events throughout the duration of your show. Our next category is catalog printing, which is not an expense that can change. Q covers the printing budget for each exhibition catalog, including the exhibition essay as part of our art critic mentorship program. Catalog designs and printing is organized entirely by Q and follows a seasonal template that cannot be altered. The printing budget does not include costs of catalog photography, though, which is important to note. So artists are responsible for providing Q with print-ready images for the catalog before the exhibition. Funding for the following line items and services are not covered by Q's budget. So equipment rental, while Q does have some equipment, things like a projector, TV monitor that we have available for use for artists for free. We also have pedestals and basic installation supplies. But if you're going to include things that go beyond this, that you don't have or you may need to rent, this would need to be covered from additional income sources. Again, if you're not sure what that rental cost might be, we encourage you to hop online and kind of Google, find some services or companies that rent that equipment out and reach out to them for an estimate of the cost. We'll drop a link in the chat to our gallery floor plan, as well as a link to a spreadsheet that contains a full list of all of the tech equipment, supplies, inventory, and gallery information that'll be available to you through Q. So the next would be supplies. So supplies include the cost of anything you would need to produce or ship artwork for the exhibition, such as art materials, packing materials, special hardware, plexiglass, and other materials for display, etc. Q does not cover the cost of packing your work for transportation. Expenses in this category should be drawn down from additional income sources. For install, on the other hand, Q does provide basic supplies for gallery installations, such as tools and standard hardware. The next is travel. We do require artists to be at Q for the installation and opening of their exhibition, unless pandemic precautions prevent travel for non-local artists or anyone with health concerns. We encourage artists to be here when possible for the deinstall as well, although that is less crucial. This category includes also any foreseeable travel and lodging costs related to the exhibition. Funds should be drawn from additional income sources for all travel. For professional services, this category includes the cost of hiring any professional to help produce your project, such as video or sound editor, a computer programmer, carpenter, shipping crate maker, photographer, framer. All of those would fall under professional services. Again, Q covers the design and printing of the catalog, but we do not cover the production of catalog-ready images. So if you need to hire a professional photographer to take images of your work to include in the catalog, that's an expense that would go under professional services and not be covered. If you have questions about this budget, I would say the best thing to do, again, is to refer to our budget guidelines listed in the resource section at the bottom of the open call page. That will really walk you through each section of the budget in great detail. Again, we will not require a budget worksheet from solo exhibition proposals. This is really just to give you an idea of the sense of the overall scope of the budget. In the chat, we'll drop a link to the comprehensive breakdown of these expenses. So now let's take a look at the sample curatorial budget, which is similar to the solo show, but the numbers are a little bit different. So let's look at the income that Q contributes. So this includes $2,500 for the curator honorarium, $2,500 for an artist fee budget to distribute to your exhibiting artists, and $2,000 for a production budget. The rest of the numbers here are the same as for the solo exhibition, and like a solo exhibition, the following numbers are fixed and cannot be altered. So again, that's $1,500 for round trip art shipping, $960 for art installation fees, $200 for hospitality, and roughly $3,500 for catalog printing. If you feel like these numbers are not going to cover your expenses, you can supplement things like shipping and art installation fees with your production budget or with additional income. If in your budget, please add to the additional income category income that's committed, meaning money that you've already received or you know you will be receiving by the time of the exhibition. This can also include money that you have applied for, but maybe you haven't yet received. You just mark this as potential income. So let's say here you applied to the ABC Foundation, which, to be clear, is a fictional foundation for a grant in the amount of $1,500. And this is not something you are sure you will receive. You would include that amount in the additional income section for budgeting purposes. For total income, you would then add the total from the additional income to the total for Q's contribution for the grand total of $14,660. If you move down to exhibition expenses, artist fees are going to include the fees for all artists who are included in the exhibition, as well as the fees for any guest speaker or artists who might participate in panel discussions, workshops, any other events that you would produce in conjunction with your curatorial project. It's important to note that Q adheres to working artists in the greater economy or wage guidelines to set the minimum amount of what you will pay each artist and speaker. If there's room in the budget, we definitely encourage to pay more than the wage suggestions. We've included those guidelines in the detailed budget instructions for curatorial projects on our website. So please take a look there for a breakdown of that fee schedule. The link will also be in the chat. If you'd like more information on wage, we encourage you to also check out their website, which a link was also being dropped in. So in terms of artist fees, if we look in your notes section of the budget, you can see how we've broken down exactly how much we're going to pay each artist and participant in your public programs. Since I've decided to pay each artist over the wage guidelines for a group show with 7 artists, and that does exceed the $2,500 that Q contributed, I'm going to pull that excess for my production budget, which I've noted on the worksheet. So I'm going to go ahead and take that $2,950 and put that right here for my artist fees. So the next line item is art shipping. For all of my artists, for the sake of this kind of discussion, we'll say all of my artists are pretty local to the New York area. So we're not too worried about the shipping costs exceeding $1,500. Again, if you're not sure, if it seems like the work is heavy or large, it's coming from farther away, you can supplement your art shipping budget here with the production budget or from your additional income sources. So for the art installation fees, let's say it's going to be a really straightforward installation. So we're going to estimate the $960 Q contributes for 2 days of art handling and 1 to 2 days of deinstall. It's going to be fine for this show. Similarly, we'll say the $200 for hospitality is great. Catalog printing is a fixed cost, so there's nothing to change there. For equipment rental, let's say you wanted to rent a projector for the artist workshop. And you did some research and found a high quality projector for rent for $250. So you enter that under equipment rental. And that'll also be noted in your notes. So let's say For supplies, you want to say you estimate that you'll need $350 for hardware and for other installation supplies. For professional services, I decided that, maybe I want to hire a carpenter to make a custom display for my exhibition. So say you got a quote for $715 and you've entered that $750 into the budget under professional services. Catalog photography or framing costs are other common examples of professional services that are commonly required for an exhibition. Anytime you're hiring someone to help you with some component of your exhibition, that would fall under professional services. Let's say under other, your line item here, say you want to have exhibition postcards to spread the word about the exhibit. In addition, something additional to the catalog. So you've done some research and that's going to cost about $235 to have those printed. So you enter that under other in your line item right here. The last thing you've allotted for in your budget is curatorial travel. We do require that the curator be here for the installation and for the opening, as well as any events that you're proposing in conjunction with your project. If you're coming in from out of town, we can usually schedule events to coincide either with your opening or with your closing of the show, especially if getting to New York is difficult. But for the sake of this, let's say you live pretty close, maybe in Philadelphia, have some friends that you can stay with when you come to New York. So let's say you put $500 for total curator travel for 2 round-trip train tickets. Travel costs cannot be withdrawn from the production budget, so you've decided to use the $500 from your ABC grant for your travel. And since your production budget matches the allotted $2,000, that leaves you still with your $2,500 honoraria and another $1,000 from your fictional ABC grant, which you've entered under additional income. That additional income you can use that for incidentals or things that come up during the planning process that you've not budgeted for here. But after double checking this against your income, it looks like this would total you out to have a balanced budget. And again, you'll have this all itemized and explained in your notes section of the budget, which is all outlined in the form available on the website. Okay, so we're going to wrap up here and with some just general advice before you submit, and then we'll open it up to questions. The first thing is we recommend that you check your application thoroughly and check it multiple times. Once you submit it, your application will not be edited. You cannot edit it. Make sure that you've completed all of the required application materials. Make sure your links work. Make sure all of your work samples are attached, and that you've attached your budget worksheet and CV. My advice here would be to take a look at our website where we outline exactly what you'll need to include in your application. We find that it's best to work on your application in a Word document, Google Doc, or any other word editing process server. So you can save and then just copy and paste into the submittable form, just so that you don't run into any glitches on the site while trying to submit and you have to start over again. The second thing we recommend is to get a second opinion on your application. If you have a friend or a family member who would be willing to read through your application and give you some feedback and let you know if they understand the proposal, if it's looking good, that's always really, really helpful and a great way to kind of flag anything that's coming up. The third thing we recommend is to plan ahead. We do receive a high volume of submissions the day before the deadline, and submittable can get overwhelmed. So if possible, we recommend that you try to submit early. The fourth thing is to ask questions. If you're not ready to ask questions now, you can always email us at opencall@qartfoundation.org if you have any specific questions about your proposal, the budget, what's allowed in the gallery space, your eligibility, or how to submit the application. We'll do our best to answer all of your questions as soon as we can, but again, plan ahead. If it's the week of or the day of the deadline, we may be getting a lot of emails, so we might not be able to get to all of them before the deadline. So the sooner you can get those questions to us, the better. We'll again drop our open call email address in the chat. Lastly, we recommend coming by the space if you're local and able to do so. We do have the floor plans available on our website, as well as photos and videos, but seeing the space and getting a feel for it in person is always preferable and really helpful in thinking about your exhibition, and if you're able to do so. Please check our website for gallery hours and visitor information to plan your site visit. Okay, so at this point, if anyone has questions that we've not covered, either in the chat or in this presentation, please say so in the chat now, and we'll do our best to address them. You can also use the raise hand function, and we'll try to attend to that as well.
Thank you so much, Georgie. And Jillian has done a great job answering any questions that have come up so far in the chat. If you have any additional that you haven't asked yet, you can message them to me directly in the chat and I'll respond to them as they come in. Or if you want to wait and think about it, you can email our open call at email. Okay, we have a question. Do artists included in a curatorial proposal also have to live in the United States? I believe they do. Jillian or Georgie, do you want to jump in to?
Yes, they do need to live in the United States as well.
Thank you. Someone wanted to double check that people can submit proposals of works that have never been shown and haven't been made yet, as long as you have work samples that show something similar. Yes, so work that you're proposing that is not yet made or shown anywhere else, you can include work samples that tell us a bit about what this work is going to look like or kind of demonstrate your execution of it. You can include sketches, think about what will give us the best sense of your work. Yep, a digital mock-up or drawing is also good. Someone's asking about installation furniture to use, tables, chairs, bookshelves. So we dropped in a link with all of the equipment that we have. We have pedestals, and sometimes we build new pedestals for shows. We have folding chairs. We don't really have any nice big chairs that I can think of. Applicants do not need to be US citizens. They can be of any nationality. They just need to be living and working in the United States. So someone's asking about exhibit ideas that they've submitted in the past. So we have a new jury of artists and curators looking at the work every year. So you don't need to put in any note about referring to your previous work unless you think it's helpful for the new people looking at it, understanding.
Somebody asked, could you explain how the art critic mentoring plays a role in the catalog production for a curatorial project? Does a curator get to contribute writing to the catalog?
Yes, so we have 3 main texts in our catalogs. We'll have the artist statement, so the artist will have an opportunity to write something about their work, the curator mentor statement, where they can write about their work, and then we also have an open call for an emerging writer to contribute to the catalog, and they'll have a chance to meet with the artist.
It looks like Ellen Rosenbaum has a question. I'm going to ask you to unmute and you can ask your question. Well, maybe technical difficulties. Jillian, you might need to unmute.
They should be able to unmute themselves now if you try again.
Okay. In the meantime, someone's asking about whether we have photographs of the empty exhibit space available online. I believe we do have that included in the link with the gallery floor plan. Oh no, that's just to the floor plan.
I believe we do have on our website some images of the empty space, but
We have it somewhere. So someone asked to clarify, could you please explain what it means to have maintained a studio practice outside of an academic setting for 3 or more years? So by this, we mean that you have produced, created, and shown your work outside of like a university gallery or something directly related to your academic program. So for example, even if you were a student for the duration of the time, it's very possible that you have a robust professional practice and are showing in places outside of your school during that time. And we'll take that into consideration.
This is Ellen.
Oh yes, hi Ellen.
Hello. I finally figured out what I'm doing. I'm like I'm probably a lot older than all of you, so I'm not quite as savvy on the technical end of things. But I had a couple questions. One is this material that you're talking about today, is it going to be available in any kind of written form or online in case I had missed something when I was taking notes?
Yes, we'll have the full transcript and the slideshow available online.
Okay.
And the ones from last year, that's pretty much the same as the past 2 years. The ones from last year are already linked online. So if you have any immediate questions, you can see that there.
Okay, great. Secondly, I have a project that I'm applying for with my niece, and we're doing it together. Is that considered a curatorial project, or is that between the two of us, could we be considered one artist, creating a exhibit, that we're both are doing it's on the same, it's all on the same plane?
Yeah, so we do accept solo exhibit proposals from artist collaboratives, more than an artist working with someone else. You just have to demonstrate that you've been working together for a while. I think it's about 2 or more years that you've been working together as a collaborative.
Okay. Does this include like conversations?
I think it's a bit more robust than that, but for more specifics, you can email us at open call at
Okay.
QR Foundation.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I see another person raising their hand. I'm going to ask you to unmute so you can ask your question.
So to the point of the last person's question, what kind of documentation would we have to provide for that? I know you said, could we send it in an email, but if there's anything you can tell me really fast, that'd be great.
Oh, to show that you've been like working as a collaborative.
Yeah.
So maybe you've been working under like a certain name as a collaborative team. For example, the show that is opening tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, on Saturday at Q. It's the artists work together under like one collaborative name together, and so on their like work sample like resumes, that you can see that the places that they've shown or any awards that they have are like with that collaborative. So that's one way that we can see.
Okay. And what if both of the artists are new artists who haven't shown anywhere yet, but they worked together in the past, just on a more experimental level?
That's a great question. Georgie, I'm wondering if you have any ideas about that one.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult one. I think that you'd have to demonstrate in some way that you have a sustained practice as a collaborative duo. And so maybe you're showing works that you've done together in your work samples that are dated accordingly. Maybe these works haven't been exhibited, but they, demonstrate both individuals are participating and engaging on it. We're also welcome to email us directly, and we can kind of sort through if you want us to take a look at what you have.
Thank you.
It looks like we have another person raising their hand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, whoops, I just muted you again. Can you unmute yourself again? There we go. So Susan, if you have,
Yeah,
yes.
I intend to submit a proposal for 2 artists working collaboratively. I'd just like to know, since we don't work under one name, how we submit material. Do we submit 2 CVs? Do we submit, separate work samples? How does that work in the application process?
Yeah, so you can submit both CVs and just combine them as one PDF document. So we can see both of that. And then the work samples, it'll still be the same number of images. So just try and find a balance of the work between the 2 of you that you think best demonstrates your exhibition proposal.
Okay.
Also, I just found the link for photos of the space, and I'm dropping that in the chat for anyone who would like to see. Sorry, continue.
I just wanted to make sure that all of the other materials we should be providing two of each, basically.
Let me double check my notes for that one moment.
Well, the project proposal, you wouldn't need 2, but the statements.
Yeah, so I think the statement would be one statement about your work, like as a collaboration.
Okay.
Yeah, because in order to, if you're applying for the solo exhibit, it really has to be a strong collaboration that you're working together and applying under this one vision for the show.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Emanuela, do you want to ask your question?
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I just had a question about performance and life components. If they are meant to be shown as an exhibition, whether you've done that before or that feels something that you would not be interested in. And especially if you have specific concerns around COVID.
So for performances, we do work with performance artists, and we've done like video documentation of the space or different ways that artists activate the space. We have at least one public program for each artist that we exhibit. So artists like James Morrell in the past have used that as an opportunity to do a performative work.
Is it ever not part of the programming, but inside the exhibition context? I guess you're open to anything, is what you're saying.
Yes, I think I would be intentional still about how you're using the space and what the experience would be like for visitors in the space. Yeah, I would say I can't think of a reason that we wouldn't consider it, but
Okay.
yeah, just really think through what that would be like for visitors in the space.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Maria, would you like to ask your question?
Hi.
Um, oh,
Oh, we might have unmuted two people at once.
Yeah. Zoom. Sorry, I'll just ask really. Okay, never mind. I think Jillian managed to answer my question. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Maria, do you want to go?
yes, I would like to ask if the proposal is a new body of work that is being created, and there are very few examples. You mentioned that one can present sketches of the work, of the idea. So if you have to present 5 images and then you have just 3 details of a proposal, but do the sketches, you present several sketches in different views of what you think the space will look like with your new work, would that be sufficient? Or you need, you prefer to have samples of the old work and what the new proposal is?
So it's really, your decision as the artist, what you think is the best representation of what, how you can best show someone else what, your vision for the project. So, that could include, as you mentioned, sketches, mock-ups, examples of past work, and really just thinking strategically and then also in tandem with your written components, just trying to weave that as fluidly as possible to give us a sense of what it is that you're proposing.
Okay, but the sketches would be enough, a couple of images and the sketches would be enough for you to judge on it. So it will be not detrimental to have just few images, but more sketches of what you're proposing, because it's a completely new body of work, correct?
Yeah, I don't think that should be detrimental.
Okay,
Thank
great,
you.
thank you.
I'm seeing another question in the chat about whether proposals describing their exhibit should describe using the whole space or just part of the space. So when we do a solo exhibit, you do get, there's a smaller front gallery space, there's a little hallway space, and then there's a bigger main gallery in the back. And we do recommend that you consider how you might be using each of those spaces. The hallway space itself is a little bit strange, so some artists like to use that for smaller works or maybe more transitional works. It's also, some artists do not use that space, but really considering the front gallery and the main gallery, the space as a whole will help you put your best foot forward for a proposal. Elaine, would you like to ask your question?
Oh, hi, just to piggyback on the performance artist question. Is it possible to write in the proposal how the performance might shift the installation of the exhibit or components of the installation of the exhibit? Is that accepted, or do you discourage that?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Okay, well, I see we're a little bit past 7 now. We've done our best to answer as many questions as we could. We still have, there's a lot of information that's available on the website, and we'll be posting this recording as well if you missed anything. And then any follow-up questions or further questions that weren't answered here, you can feel free to email us at the open call email. Georgie, Jillian, is there anything else we want to mention, or are you ready to wrap up?
No, I think that's about it. I wanted to say thank you so much to everyone for coming tonight and for these really thoughtful questions. Please do feel comfortable to reach out, and we're here to help you through the process. So hope everyone has a great night, and thanks again.
Great, Georgie, thank you. Good night, everyone.